So to wrap up chapter 1 or unit 1 in your book, we're going to talk about contemporary mapping tools. So contemporary mapping tools include things like GIS and GPS. Now, Geographic Information Service involves the development and analysis of data that's acquired through satellites and other electronic information technologies. So this is the analysis of data. When we talk about how that data is collected, we refer to that as remote sensing. So again, the information science is really about the analysis of data that's already been collected. Remote sensing is how we acquire the data using satellites. So we're collecting data using remote sensing, and then you're analyzing that data using geographic information science. So that information part, when you have information, you analyze it. So you can keep them separate. So while you're collecting data with that remote sensing, the sensors on the satellites will scan the Earth's surface, and then those individual pixels are transmitted to a receiving station, where the computer then assembles each of them into an image. So if you make a map created using remotely sensed data, it's a grid of rows and columns of pixels, which if you've ever zoomed in on a map, thus making the scale larger, if you ever zoomed in on a map, sometimes you can see those pixels, right? Or the image becomes pixelated. But sometimes if you're zooming in, you can kind of see those rows and columns of pixels. Now, if you're using GIS data and remote sensing data, then we call it GPS. So GPS is a system. So GIS is a science that analyzes remote sensing data. Remote sensing is the acquisition and collection of that data. And GPS is an applied service. It's a system. And so this system accurately determines the precise position of something on Earth. So if you're using GPS in the US, we have satellites that are placed in predetermined orbits to do that remote sensing. And then they have the analysis of that data, and then you use it as a system. We have tracking stations that monitor and control those satellites. And then there's a receiver that can locate at least 4 satellites, figure out its distance from each, and use that information to calculate a precise location. And what do we use it for? Turn-by-turn directions in vehicles, navigational aid to pilots and ship captains. It gives us location for social media applications in your smartphone. So whenever you get that announcement on your phone or a little pop-up on a computer saying it wants to know your location to better serve you, will you allow? And that happens if you're looking at a store. So if you were looking up like Old Navy or Hollister or wherever the cool kids shop today, if you were looking that up, it'll ask you, this website wants to know if it can know your application or your location. And you do that, and it'll bring up the nearest store to you. So it'll help search for that data. Use it for games on your phone. I know that Pokemon Go is not really cool anymore, but it definitely used the GPS. The GPS. Now I definitely sound old, guys. And there's that new Jurassic Park game that came out over the summer. Same thing. So even there's a lot of games now. These augmented reality games that use GPS data. GIS, the information system, layers data. So when you look at a GIS map, you're going to get, as it's analyzing these data, storing it and displaying it for you, you're going to get 3 different layers of data. So you can see different types of relationships, and they can overlay it all in one form. So if you're looking at your GIS data, you're going to get vector data that tells you where the cities are. So this is location data. You also get vector data that tells you where like the roads and the highways are. And then you take that raster data. The raster data is landforms. And then you overlay them. And so you end up with landforms with the streets laid over it and then the cities. And then if you were to zoom in instead of like major highways, then you'll start getting the smaller side streets, and you'll start seeing, that's when you can see pictures of homes and, a pond or a park in your neighborhood as well. And that's it.